Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Potsmoker's Bible. My name is Zion. I'm the author of the Potsmoker's Bible. It contains the prophetic book of Zion, where I get my name and authority. It comes from the Ketuvim, or Old Testament of the Christian Bible. I use the King James Version to put together the prophecy of Israel from the scattered text. After I read a passage that said, "Who will put this in order for me?" which I did. And today I'm going to be reading to you from the 5th chapter of the Potsmoker's Bible, which is the 3rd chapter of the Book of Zion, and it is actually called The Lord Speaks. And it goes like this. This chapter is about the testimony of the prophets as the voice of God, and it introduces God on a personal level. God speaks of his knowledge and attributes and compares that to the human concept of God. It also introduces Jesus. It explains Jesus' true role in the prophecy. It also introduces the idol, which bears his image. The first part of this chapter is spoken in the voice of the prophets. It represents not only the prophet Zion, but also the ancient prophets, especially Isaiah, who was the first to volunteer to speak to humanity on God's behalf. The prophets volunteer to be God's voice on earth. We are told that these prophets are trained from youth to both hear God's voice and to speak that message to their charges, the human race. Their job is crucial to the cause of both God and man. They are interpreters and teachers who are chosen. Prophets take on this job by volunteering of their own free will. They are a living link between God and humanity. The reason there is a need for prophets isn't written in the prophecy. I am told that the Grey are telepathic. They haven't used their voices in recorded memory. All their language is in a thought form. It is not possible for humans to learn their language, and unless the key nutrient necessary for telepathy is present in the human brain, no telepathic communication is possible. The first pre-flood civilization of humans were telepathic, but the primitive nature of humanity, when enhanced, made telepathy dangerous for our kind. As the population increased, so did the misuse of the psychic abilities inherent in the telepathy. They also destroyed themselves. This Atlantean civilization was worldwide. They had the same technology as the Grey. They weren't capable of the required restraint of thought and thought forms to maintain their society. The flood was caused by the first human society. The Grey decided to safeguard humanity by switching off the genetic sequence which allowed for telepathy and other higher brain functions. They altered the gene segment to require a rare nutrient, which restricted the abilities deemed too dangerous for the primitive species like ours. This nutrient would switch on the required genes, creating human telepathic abilities. This would ensure that only a chosen few would have the dangerous abilities. The Grey then chose two bloodlines to enhance further. One was the bloodline of Abraham. The other was the priesthood, which was not a single family, but holy men and women who would use the rare nutrient and other similar nutrients to activate the dormant genes. This second bloodline is Zion. Since the Great Flood, these two human groups have carried the burden of prophecy. They have been the human link between the vocal humans and the telepathic rays. Until the human race evolves into a truly telepathic race, there will always be the need for a priesthood of human telepaths. Once the rightful place of the telepathic priest is established, the ancient aliens go on to address the modern human race and their belief systems. The tone of the chapter changes as the prophets begin to speak in God's voice. The Grey are angry with the foolishness of humanity, and they challenge the wisdom of the non-telepathic priesthood. The prophecy singles out the Christians. It introduces the true nature of Jesus' role in the fulfillment of prophecy. For those who believe in Jesus, this Jesus, there is hope, because the true Jesus has a rightful place in both our past and in our future. However, the chapter goes on by describing the idol of the false Jesus, the one created by the false prophet Paul. This Jesus is a God. He is a scapegoat for all who sin, a free ride to heaven. This is not the true Jesus. This Jesus is false, an idol, a lie. The Grey challenged the Christian Church to prove their claims of a divine Jesus. They remind the idol worshippers that Israel had been chosen. The challenge given to the Christian Church is a series of questions with God's rebuttal written in scalding terms. The Grey clearly do not like the Christians. The chapter closes by foretelling the fate of Jerusalem. It predicts the chaos and turmoil caused by the interplay of the Jewish Hebrew-based religions, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. It says that all who look to Jerusalem for holy zeal will pay the price of that act. Jerusalem was the site of the failed Hebrew priesthood. The Jewish people lost their place of highest honor when they rejected the Grey as their leaders. The bloodline of Israel was always intended as a continual link between God and humanity. But the family rejected that right, and their history is the result of that failure. Jerusalem, as the heart of Israel, reflects that failure. It is a cursed place. Isaiah. Okay, chapter 3, Book of Zion. The Lord speaks. Isaiah 50, 4 and 5. Zion 3, 1 and 2. The Lord God hath given me the tongue of the learned, that I should know how to speak a word in season to him that is weary. He waketh me morning by morning. He awaketh my ears to hear as the learned. The Lord hath opened my ears, and I was not rebellious, neither turned away back. Isaiah 50, 4 and 5 opens chapter 3. These two verses explains how a prophet becomes a prophet. God opens the ears of the prophet. He is given the rare nutrient required to activate the latent telepathic gene. This cuts off this act of finding this key element of telepathy is something the prophet is led to. The prophet accepts the gift of telepathy. They choose to become prophets. Once the prophet becomes a telepath, that person is taught what is true and how to convey the words of God. They are trained to speak for the benefit of humanity. They are made into true priests who dedicate their lives to the service of both God and humanity. All prophets are priests, but only telepathic priests are true prophets. The next three verses, Isaiah 6, 8 through 10, becomes Zion 3, 5, 3 to 5. I heard the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send, and who will go for us? Then I said, Here I am, send me. And he said, Go and tell this people, Hear ye indeed, but understand not. See ye indeed, but perceive not. Make the heart of this people fat, and make their ears heavy, and shut their eyes, lest they see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their hearts, and convert, and be healed. Um, this comes from Isaiah as a volunteer. It is also my words, as I in turn volunteered to be a prophet of the gray. We both said, Here I am, send me. The next two verses, 9 and 10, tells us where we are to be sent. We are sent to this people. As already stated, this people are the Christians. This people, we are told, are blind and dumb. They are to be given the message, but they are unable to understand it. They are unable to hear the true meaning. This inability to understand what is truth is deliberate. The ancient gray chose to keep them from understanding the truth of their own sacred text. They are meant to believe the false doctrine that they follow blindly, lest we are told they learn to look for the nutrient for themselves and find the way to true salvation, and thus pervert the creation of the true Zionite priesthood. Um, the next passage is Isaiah 44 24 and 25, Zion 3 6 and 7. Thus saith the Lord thy Redeemer, and he that formed thee from the womb. I am the Lord that maketh all things, that stretcheth forth the heavens alone, and spreadeth forth the earth himself, that frustrateth the token of the liars, and that maketh the diviners mad, that turneth wise men backwards, and maketh their knowledge foolishness. Isaiah 44, 24, and 25 seems to be a fantastic boast of godliness, but on closer examination, these two statements from the ancient point of view are valid. The ancient humans, now ignorant of technology, and soon to be left to their own devices, had already invented the all-powerful, all-knowing false god embodied in idols. This half-truth boast allowed the Gray to address these false attributes invented by humanity. This false image of God as a supernatural being has been carried down since ancient times. Many ancient idol gods remain viable religious traditions still practiced today. Other, newer forms have been added to the list. Divine beings able to do super powerful things. In order to address this issue of the false supernatural God created by the non-telepathic priesthood, the Gray claim to be that very false deity, not by choice, but to prove the true nature of their claim as the gods that from the heavens came. Verse 25 tells us that this taking on of false abilities is done to end the foolish beliefs of divine godhood. The false ancient myths of God as divine are proven to be imaginary, their wisdom backwards, their diviners crazy, contortionists passing down fables as truth. In order to accept the aliens as the descendants of ancient aliens, humanity must first accept that God means alien, and in order to cast doubt on the current idea of God, the Gray have mimicked the false gods. I'm going to end there today, to end this session here, because it's the most logical place to do so. May the Gray watch over you, guide you, protect you, and keep you from all harm. May they teach you right from wrong, and may you be worthy of them. May your thoughts, words, and deeds reflect truth, good, and light, the unicorn way. May you find your joy and pursue it. Stay happy and high. Know that I love you. I will see you soon. Later now, because I'll never say goodbye.